Good afternoon, good evening, good day. PT Pop here, all four lobes of my brain securely bound behind my back. And tonight, I'm going to talk about a former call center who is now being sued by one of its employees for not paying overtime. Stay tuned.
At the tone, press 1 for murder.
Before I get to the main topic this evening, I want to thank everybody who has purchased my book, Press 1 for Murder. It's about a guy named Jeremy Gant who works in a call center, and several of his employees have been murdered, and the police are very interested in his whereabouts when these murders took place. He's a suspect. So this is for sale right now on Amazon in both paperback, as you see here, and in ebook. I designed the cover myself. That is my wonderful artwork, if you can see that. Press 1 for Murder. I've also got t-shirts for the book. Press 1 for Murder t-shirts, these snazzy t-shirts. That's Press 1 for Murder. It's a book t-shirt on teespring.com that you can buy that to support my cause here on my YouTube channel. Call Center Survivor t-shirts. As you can see here, Call Center Survivor t-shirts. You can buy those, and they're Press 1 for Murder on teespring.com. So, to my topic tonight. About a year and a half ago, I worked for a regional bank. And the name of the bank was Huntington National Bank. And this is one of my worst call center experiences of all time. And I name it specifically because it is tied for first place with one of my worst call center experiences. And this company is also named in a lawsuit. The lawsuit is in the United States District Court for the Southern District of Ohio. Robert Young versus Huntington Bancshares Incorporated. And I received notice of this because I'm a former employee of this call center and of this bank, and they wanted to know if I wanted to join in the lawsuit. Now, here's the basics of the lawsuit. Basically, the lawsuit states that this guy was not paid overtime when he feels he should have been. It says, Robert Young, plaintiff, brought his lawsuit against Huntington on behalf of himself and all other current and former similarly situated individuals employed by Huntington between April 10th of 2015 and the present. Plaintiff contends that Huntington failed to properly pay overtime compensation under the FLSA for hours worked in excess of 40 per week for the time he spent booting up and logging into Huntington's computer systems, software applications, and or phone systems, and or reviewing emails and emails and memoranda prior to clocking in at the beginning of the shift. Plaintiff sued Huntington to recover his overtime compensation. Plaintiff also seeks liquidated damages in an amount equal to the alleged unpaid wages and attorney's fees and costs. Huntington denies liability and contends that it properly compensated its employees as required by law and that it complied with the FLSA in good faith. Okay, I've got the documents up here on the screen. And this lawsuit just completely stands behind my argument. It fortifies my argument. How these call centers are pits of evil. They're horrible places. They're poorly run. They are dark, insidious organizations within the corporate world, and they'll do anything to skirt the laws. They'll do anything to skirt paying out any extra money that they have to. It's a dark, insidious, hideous place to work, and I hope this guy wins. This is just a prime example that I've been trying to illustrate for the last couple of years about how horrible these call centers are and how unlawful they are. Completely unlawful and just decrepit, nasty places to work. And I hope this one piece of proof, even though they've not been proven guilty, I know this happened here. And some attorney, thought this gentleman had enough to go on to make it a case and to get it brought into the courts, to bring it to the attention of the United States District Court for the Southern District of Ohio. So, that being said, I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that this gentleman is telling the truth. And the FLSA, by the way, is the Fair Labor Standards Act. It's a federal law which establishes minimum wage, overtime pay, eligibility, record keeping, and child labor standards affecting full-time and part-time workers in the private sector and in federal, state, and local governments. I personally say that what this gentleman is saying is true because I experienced it myself. Now, I'm not saying that the bank is guilty. I can't say that because the alleged, I guess I could kind of say I experienced it, and this is how I experienced it. You be the judge, or let the courts be the judge of what the final outcome is. But this is what I experienced when I went to work at this bank. As a corporate person, I know you're supposed to show up to your shift anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes early so you can go get your coffee, put your lunch away, put your coat away, take off your snowshoes or whatever whatever. Get ready, go sit down at your desk, log into your computer, and get ready for the day. That's how I was trained. That's how I've worked in the corporate world since 1988. So at this bank, when I first started working there for the first couple of months, I would come in, I'd put away my coffee, put away my lunch, get my coffee, put away my coat, yada, 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 go sit down at my desk, and I'd log into my computer. Now, the reason why you want to get logged into your computer ahead of time in a call center is because if you wait until when your shift starts, you're going to be late for your shift, okay? So if you come in and your shift starts at 10 a.m. and you sit down at your desk at 9:59 and don't start logging in until your shift starts, you're going to be considered late to work because you're not on the phones. You're supposed to be at your desk at 10 a.m. taking calls. Be ready to take calls. Period. That's the way it works in the call center world. That's the way it worked at this bank. You were supposed to be at your desk at 10 a.m., no sooner, no later, taking calls at 10 a.m. So I would get there early and I'd log in, and I would log in early because I think we had like 7 to 10 systems to log into. We had to log into the local area network or the LAN, and then log into the different systems that had all their products and email and the phones and all these different things you had to log into. And each one required, passwords and took time to boot up. And if you wait until 10, it'll be anywhere from 5 to 10 after the hour before you were logged into everything, and you would be written up because you'd be late. So they kind of get you in this catch-22 thing where if you show up early and log in, you're not getting paid for it because they told you there's no overtime here. But I would still come in and log in early. And I was told by my supervisor, Christine, she's like, just don't do that because you're not going to get paid for the time. We don't pay overtime here unless it's approved. Authorized, I think it's called authorized overtime. Now, the problem with this is, and as all of you know in the call center world who have worked in the call center, you've got other things you've got to do while you're on the phones, like follow up with customers, respond to customer emails, check your internal emails, respond to internal emails, and all of these things are almost impossible to do while you're on the phone with the customers. Now, in the high-volume call center like at Huntington Bank, you got a call after call. You got call after call after call. And they were long, intensive calls. These weren't just easy calls like, hey, sir, what's my balance today? Thanks very much. Have a good day. They weren't calls like that. These were calls of people furious with the fees on their account, overdraft fees. They didn't know what was wrong with their account, why they're being overdrawn, so on and so forth. So if you're trying to respond to your supervisor in an email while you're on a call, they do screenshots of all of these calls Okay. And then they see what you're doing. They're like, hey, you should not be talking to your supervisor, Christina, while you're on the phone with customer XYZ, because that's not good customer service and you're not focused on what you're doing. So in a side-by-side I had with my supervisor, she's like, well, you really shouldn't be doing this while you're on the phone with a customer. And I said, Christine, when am I supposed to do it then? She said, just do it in between calls. And I said, there is no in between call time. You get maybe 30 seconds between calls before the next call dropped into your headset. So they get you in this catch-22 thing where you want to produce, you want to do good, but you can't do all the necessary things that are required of you in the given 8 hours unless you come in 15, 20 minutes early to boot up, answer emails, and do all those things, and they refuse to pay overtime. That's what they do with me. Now, I was only there 90 days, and I just resigned for 90 days because not only did they want me to do just general banking calls, and what I was hired to do was I was a banker. I was an online banker, not an online banker. I was a customer service rep that handled questions about people's bank accounts. And they said that on top of all the banking questions I was to field and to service, I also had to help people open their online banking account. Now, if you've ever tried to help somebody over the phone with a browser or a search engine, or try to help them over the phone without sitting next to them at their computer, showing them where to go and what the browser is, what the search engine is, where you put the web address and things like that, it's like trying to lace your boots with boxing gloves on. You're like, I can't do it. It's really hard. It's almost impossible, especially when you're dealing with the elderly. But most people, I would say over the age of 70, are far from computer savvy. And if you're trying to help them log in for the very first time, create an online banking account, you may as well be talking Chinese to a Portuguese fisherman in the middle of the moon. It's just goes right over. They have no idea what they're doing. My first call taking an online banking question was an hour long, and I resigned soon after that. I can't say whether this bank is guilty overall, but I know they did not allow overtime. I know they did not allow you to log in your systems prior to like 5 minutes till the hour, which didn't give you enough time to log into everything. And you would end up getting dock time. You'd end up getting, written up or talked to, or having a side session with your supervisor who would say, hey, you're not logged in on time, or you're not taking calls when you're supposed to be here. So all the stats look like you're not at your desk when you're supposed to be. So they'd get you in trouble. They'd write you up. They'd talk to you. They'd discipline you. So they put you in this position, which is an impossible position to meet the required stats that they want you to meet, because they don't give you enough time to do it, and you can't do it when you're on the phones because the call volume is so high, and they don't give you time off the phones. So when are you supposed to have time to log into your system, answer email, and do all the peripheral things they want you to do on top of answering all these calls and sign people up for online banking? That's what happened to me. They asked me to do the impossible, what I perceived to be the impossible. And this gentleman, Mr. Young, is completely within his rights and is completely justified. His suit is justifiable, and I believe this law firm found it had credibility. And I hope something good comes with this. I'm thinking of signing this and being part of the lawsuit. I know they'll probably interview me and see if I'm credible. This bank is like a $78 billion bank, regional bank, worth billions and billions and billions of dollars, and they could not afford to pay us a living wage, and they did not want to pay us overtime. And these places will do anything to keep you from paying you what you're worth. And that's why they hire people out of McDonald's, why they hire people out of the wood shop or the metal shop, because if they're making $8 an hour at McDonald's, they'll pay them $12.50 at these places, and people think that's a huge increase, but it really is still not enough money to pay the rent, pay child support, pay doctor bills, pay the utilities, buy food, and have a social life. It still doesn't give you enough. It's just enough to tease you to come away from McDonald's or Burger King or Pizza Hut, but it's not enough to really make a difference. So you may as well just stay at Pizza Hut, especially when some of these people are driving 25 miles to come to this bank to work. So While the lawsuit is still an alleged and has been proven, they have been proven guilty. I know from personal experience that they, in fact, did this to this gentleman. They did it to me. They did it to everybody I worked with.
At the tone, press 1 for murder.